Right now, as we stand around here, in the rainforest of Sarawak, the indigenous people, the Penan, are fighting for their very existence. They are blockading the timber industry from moving into their forests and destroying it. They understand all too well that without those forests, they will not exist. What we're actually going to do tonight is going to go out on the river and we're going to place ourselves in front of the timber ship. We're going to blockade the Yarra in solidarity with the Penan people.
And I remember that night paddling out into the murky, dark Yarra River and really, truly believing that we'd be able to stop this ship. But once out there in the middle of the river, you know, the reality struck, and sitting there watching a 10,000-tonne ship coming upon you, and it just rammed straight through us. But it didn't deter us. We got some very good media that night, and from then on, people in Melbourne understood that we were implicated in destroying rainforests just by being consumers and buying this rainforest timbers.
Boycott rainforest timbers, simply don't buy them when you go to your local hardware store, then you'll be expressing your concern and helping to eliminate the market for rainforest timbers.
Because of the really focused nature of the actions, the media doesn't have that opportunity to focus on what it thinks the public wants, which is perhaps violent conflict instead of creative conflict with two opposing parties talking to each other about how something can change. And also because of the non-violent aspect, they have to take what we're giving rather than looking for what they think the public wants to see. We definitely try to aim for a strong visual image, but we also try to present our feelings, why we're doing the action, and what we're asking for. We're asking for a response not only from, for example, the shipping line that brings the timbers in, or the people who buy the timbers, but from the consumer themselves who is out there watching.
It was the group's 10th action since it formed early last year. The protest was against the latest shipment of rainforest timber, mostly from Sarawak in Malaysia.
We can't afford to use rainforest timber any longer. It's costing too many species. It's killing cultures of indigenous people in other places. And of course we all depend on the rainforest for our survival.
For more than a dozen of its members, though, climbing a fence to the ship today was no path to freedom. The group says it has the support of the Waterside Workers Federation as well as the Australian Workers Union. Earlier this week, both unions imposed work bans, delaying the docking of the Mayfair for 2 days. The ship had to wait until the cover of darkness last night to enter Victoria Dock. But the group's water-based protest failed to even slow the Mayfair down, and there were no arrests. By delaying unloading of the cheaper Southeast Asian timber, the Rainforest Action Group hopes to make it too expensive.
We're seeking to make rainforest timber basically unviable as an option for timber use.
The group wants to arrange talks with the Victorian Trades Hall Council to seek sufficient union support for a total ban.
I've been in the construction industry for a few years now, and I've been horrified over the years to see pictures on the TV screens of the destruction of the Amazonian rainforest. But I was pretty horrified to find that in Malaysia they're destroying the rainforest, and in Southeast Asia they're destroying the rainforests at a horrific rate. Yet the very timbers coming from those forests were ending up on building sites like this, and we were handling the products of their destruction. So it was pretty easy to put two and two together to draw the connection, and that's when I started trying to build a bit of support within my union to stop handling these products. I was able to get that support, which culminated in October 1989 with the Building Workers Industrial Union announcing a statewide ban on rainforest timbers on building sites.
Workers Industrial Union today answered protesters' calls for direct action by placing bans on the use of imported rainforest timbers at construction sites. The union claims over 1/3 is used as throwaway wood for concrete pours.
In terms of the destruction of the global environment on which we all depend, These rainforest timbers are the worst products currently coming into this country. We're banning them on humanitarian and ecological grounds.
The union hopes this will force construction companies to use homegrown material as a substitute for the cheaper imports. Diana King, News World.
While people are blockading those ships in the harbour, and while the issue has a high profile, it makes it a lot easier to approach unions, and they say that while we're doing those blockades, they will continue to put on bans. But the minute those blockades stop, the unions will perhaps stop their action, because the issue won't have such a high community profile. So it's crucial that the strategy of the rainforest groups and the workers go hand in hand, and that's what it has to date.
Dawn, and the vessel Mayfair slips quietly into Sydney, loaded with timber from Malaysia. Waiting, this group out to stop her berthing. They paddled down the harbour in kayaks and surrounded the ship as it tried to tie up at Darling Harbour. That's when it got dangerous. Police, powerless to stop them, watched as the protesters became wedged between the ship and the wharf. Despite the danger, they wouldn't give in.
Why are you doing it then? I'm prepared to die for this.
Still, they refused to budge.
He's getting crushed and he's sinking!
Down there are committed to the cause. They're not moving out until the ship moves.
The world's rainforests are 30 years from extinction.
Clearing the paddlers didn't solve the Mayfair's problems. Wharfies threw their weight behind protesters by recommending a 24-hour ban on unloading the ship from first shift tomorrow.
All these actions taking place today will be repeated or reported in history books later on, because the rainforests are a great asset to the world. They cleanse the air, and we just totally destroying them is of no benefit to us.
3 cheers for the union!
But this afternoon, unloading hadn't begun. Water transport unions will meet later this week to work out how they'll deal with future shipments of rainforest timber.
The strategy of the Melbourne Rainforest Action Group is underpinned by the philosophy and principles of non-violent struggle, and that's evident at various levels in our campaign. At the individual level, it's reflected in the commitment of the group to encouraging each person to accept some responsibility for the need for personal growth. For instance, we encourage individuals in the group to use non-exclusive language and behaviour. It's evident in the way in which the group organises itself internally. There's a commitment, for instance, to empowering group processes. So within RAG, there's no group hierarchy. There's a commitment to the use of consensus decision-making, and there's a real commitment to skill sharing within the group. At the level of politics, very much about grassroots initiative and grassroots action. What we focused on is getting ordinary people, rank and file unionists, local community groups actively involved in the struggle to save the world's rainforests, and for them to see it as something they share with us, as distinct from seeing it as something they leave to us. Non-violent politics is also about the way conflict is conceptualised, so it includes the fact that we're very aware that we've got to encourage opponents to see the struggle from the perspective we're presenting, and for us to see the struggle from the perspective of the opponent. So we see conflict as creative, as something that we're trying to draw people into, and we see our opponents as people who may, in fact, in the case of the timber industry, have values and behaviours with which we strongly disagree, but with whom, like the police even, we share a wider struggle for liberation and social transformation. So it's an attempt to see politics as an inclusive activity in which everyone plays a part.
This struggle goes on, children, right here in the port of Melbourne. 20,000 tons of rainforest timber is on our docks. Every 3 weeks, no compromise. Earth first, long live the trees. Long live the trees. Well, this struggle goes on, children. In the hills of East Gippsland, there's some 300-year-old trees. Some of them with sacred Aboriginal markings on them. Crash into the ground.